Tuesday, 11th of March 2014. We'd like to welcome Corey McCarthy for Channel 32 and Rennie Sibon for Temple Star. We'd like to welcome all our delegations and all the people who came, citizens in our gallery. So a couple architects, and not right now, if you give me a second, I'm just introducing who you are. Dean and Randy Sommerfeld for Black Sand Management, and
Randy Jensen.
Randy Jensen. What did I say?
You just combined them.
Did I mix you up? I'm so sorry.
Put other names together now and then.
As long as I'm not a Jensen.
You're okay with that.
As long as I'm an heir.
Okay, I won't comment. And Morgan Street is not here yet. We'll come a little bit later. Those will be our delegations. So we will start our meeting with an opening prayer. Councillor Edmonds, would you like to do that for us, please?
Heavenly Father, as we meet this day, we're thankful for the opportunity we have to serve the citizens of Cardston. We ask as we meet that we may be able to make wise decisions that will be beneficial to all. We're thankful for all that has provided for us, and we say this humbly in thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, before we start with our delegation, we will excuse Councillor Bengry, who is in Mexico warming his bones. Before all.
Picked the wrong week to go.
And we will take item 3, adoption of the agenda. Any additions? No additions. I need a motion to adopt. Councillor Creed, adopt the agenda. All in favor? Thank you. All right. No, Corporal Laura Cat. We love to have you. We love to see that enthusiasm. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Councillor. I just wanted to take the time just to introduce myself to you. I can tell you that I'm kind of hitting the floor running. I've been here officially 1 week. This is day 5 of operations. I'm extremely happy to be here. I've told a few people, but I'll let you all know this is kind of like a coming home for me. I was actually an auxiliary constable here for 5 years. I won't tell you the exact dates. Many years ago, before I got into the regular force. So it's an honor to be here. It's my understanding from speaking with Madam Mayor as well that since Kelly Beeler has retired, that you're looking at about a 1-year period since you've had your new sergeant here. I'm temporary, but I can tell you that I will be here until your sergeant does arrive and is here for good, is my understanding. I have 17 years service with the force. I worked up in, where was I first? Fort Saskatchewan, up north of Edmonton for 7 years. I was in Canmore for 6 years, and then lastly in High River. And yes, I was in High River during the floods. So I have a little bit of emergency operation planning knowledge. Basically, I just wanted to let you know, I have reviewed the annual performance plan for the detachment for this last fiscal year, which will be finalized here at the end of March. For the most part, from the objectives that the detachment had, it looks like we're meeting a great deal of them. I know that foot patrols and police presence and everything in the downtown core is an important initiative of the community, and they were looking at wanting to complete 75 foot patrols this year, and already, and the year isn't quite over, and we've already done 83. And I know that from reading the reports and everything that have been uploaded into the program that the foot patrols and that are definitely working. Number one, I know that the merchants downtown enjoy it. It's good for our members, and it's actually dealing, I think, with some of the loitering issues and intoxication issues that are down there. Since the foot patrols and that were implemented, I also know that the numbers in regards to individuals being lodged in our cells was also decreased. So not only it's having a positive impact, and that's something that we're definitely going to be looking at carrying forward into this next fiscal year for sure. Some other crime prevention activities that we're going to be looking to, and I'll be forwarding more information as we get closer to that, is crime prevention. And I know that I was speaking with one of my constables here today in regards to a crime reduction task force, which my understanding there's numerous partnerships in this already. I know that the town of Cardston is a partner with this, as is Blood Tribal Police, Cardston Bylaw, the RCMP and the high school and the junior high schools. They're currently looking at provincial funding grant applications, and that'll be more so based on gang awareness, gang activities within the community, and how that's affecting the youth, not only in the community and the schools, but also in the neighboring detachment areas. And that's something that I think is key. If we have issues in regards to the beginnings of gang-type activities, and that's going to increase on every aspect of policing. It's going to be looking at our vandalism, it'll impact our drugs, it'll impact liquor, it'll impact everything. So if we can be actively involved in that, and that's something I think is a priority that we'll be looking at definitely bringing forward into our performance plan for this fiscal year. I'm also looking at possibly doing bike patrols in the downtown core and the parks throughout this summer, as well as the foot patrols, like I said, and some aspect of drug enforcement. Now, whether some of our drug enforcement issues, from what I was able to gather thus far, is prescription drug type activities. So if I can come up with a proactive way, or if anybody in the community can come up with proactive ways of dealing with that, my ears are open, and I'm always open to suggestions on that. I've got a few ideas, and I'll be bringing those forward as well at a later date. Basically, that's everything that I have thus far. I mean, I'm definitely open for questions or anything like that, and like I say, I'm happy to be here.
I'd like to make a comment. First of all, I want to congratulate you. 5 days on the job, and you have a very good understanding of this community and its problem and the goals that we're trying to achieve in terms of safety for our community and safety for our merchants. So thank you so much for having taken the time to get that good debrief about our communities. And the fact that you're open for ideas, I'm sure this council is very pleased to know that, because we also know that partnership is the only way to deal with safety in a community. So we're very much on board with that idea of partnership. And if council wants to add something.
Councillor Barnes is my name. Glad to have you here in town.
Thank you.
I am a businessman downtown, and so I do get to see a lot of what's going on firsthand with some of the drug dealings and stuff down there, and can't reiterate enough that the foot patrols make a big difference. When Corporal Brown was doing them, it really helped a lot. You know, people are really reluctant to do the deals. They move on somewhere else, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
We want them to move somewhere else and then get caught. We just want that to make our streets safer. And I hear people too, they come into my office and they tell me how it's scary for, especially for the ladies. The guys can move them along, but it's the ladies that, you know, when they come up to me and they mooch off me too, the vagrancy that they want bum money, I just remind them there is a bylaw against, you know, panhandling in town, and they move on. And so it's important to have those foot patrols, and appreciate very much the continuation of that.
Sure.
Thank you. All right, well, pass on all our best wishes to your detachment, and we look forward working together. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Council.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, Randy, are you going to be the spokesman, or is Dean going to be the spokesman? Now, I won't put the last name, so I won't mix them up this time. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors, administration, I'm not sure if we're here because we requested or we're here because you requested it, so we're here.
Well, I think it's maybe your contractual obligation.
I think so. And I think, I guess to start off with, I think we would rather have done this probably in November as kind of the time that we would like to see that happen. After our year end, give you a report on what we had, or, you know, December gets so busy, and maybe January, and maybe this is a better time than never type thing. So we appreciate the opportunity. A couple of things. Let me give you a brief history, I guess, because some of the councillors are new. We as a management group have had the golf course for 3 years. We have 7 years left in our contract. That's renegotiable in 6 years from now. We didn't wait until the final 10th year, then start negotiating and things fall apart, and then you don't know if you own a golf course or if we own a golf course. And so we wanted to do it a year prior to, because it takes a while to get through that. So we're 7 years left on that 10-year contract. Contract is going good. Probably a few things that we need to twink here or there, and we will get with administration and maybe talk about some of those things. How the golf course is doing is always up for debate. We have broke even the last 3 years. Actually, this year was probably our toughest year. The first 2 seemed to go a little smoother. We're not sure why. We didn't have quite as many golfers this year. Whether that's weather-oriented, and our golf course is very susceptible to weather. We ran into a really bad hailstorm in our 2nd year. We survived that. We was closed for a couple of weeks there in the middle of that because we just couldn't golf because our greens was they look really holy. So took us a while to get that up and going. We got that going. What we have succeeded in doing, though, the first year after we took over, we broke even. The town lost a substantial amount of money. It wasn't through probably mismanagement, it was through some of the town guidelines. We can run things a little bit more efficiently, a little bit differently than sometimes government can. So we cut our costs a lot. We paid a lot less for wages because we're not obligated to pay managers certain amounts, and not because we can do what we need to do. We are obligated to pay the town $10,000 every year, and we pay that in the spring. We're obligated to pay either in services of capital development to the golf course in the tune of $15,000, or to give you a check at the end of the year for the $15,000 if we didn't do the capital improvements. So there's a $25,000 obligation that we have every year to the town. This year, and Marian will get, if Ralph Price has not given you that yet, I don't know if he has yet or not, but he has that. We put a bunch of railing up around the parking lot. We added some more sand traps. We planted a bunch more trees. We repaired cart paths. We did some of those things. We have in our contract established what a capital improvement is. To give you an idea, if 3 trees blow down and we have to replace 3 trees that we want replaced, that's not a capital improvement. That's replacing what was existing there. If we put in 50 or 60 trees in a row, then that would be a capital improvement. So that's kind of how that works, and we established that as we took care of that contract. The other thing that we did have in our contract, and it's interesting that Mr. Stratty comes in now.
Right out of queue.
Was because we leased the golf course from the town, we ended up with a tax that we had to pay. So we have to pay the school tax on that golf course, and when we negotiated that, we was thinking it was around the 9,000 mark, and it's about 12,000 that we pay every year to that school tax as well.
Now, if I understand right, excuse me for interrupting, you didn't have to pay the first year?
Yes, I believe that's right. Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
we
So
paid the
you had
last
a little
two.
bit of a break there?
Yeah. Mhm.
Thanks.
We have some concerns, and we will address some of these with administration. We have concerns a little bit about what our golf course, what your golf course, and let me explain that a little bit. Still your golf course. We lease the golf course. You still own 18 holes of golf course. You still own a clubhouse, you still own cart sheds. you still own all of that stuff. We lease it from you, but it's still your asset, it's still your property. We're a little concerned about, and you may have a name for it, we call it the Gordon Atkins Project. That is going next to us. There is some roads and a couple of cart paths that may have to be changed. There's a bathroom that has to be moved, and that would be your responsibility, not ours, or negotiating with Mr. Atkins in who's making those payments and who's doing that. And there again, we didn't need a bathroom not 3 years from now when it decides to get moved, but it has to be done fairly quickly and things like that. And so, but we will talk with administration about that so that we make sure so that we work together. We want to work together with Mr. Atkins in that project, but we also want to make sure that your asset is protected and not jeopardized, because we can't advertise nor lease a 15-hole golf course. And so we would have to make sure that happens. In saying that, we have still a problem on two of our holes, number 16 and number 17, that as we took over the lease, 16, the hill was slipping. We did a walkthrough a couple of days ago, course manager did, and found that a couple of our sprinkler heads are no longer laying flat, they're tipping sideways. So that hill is still slipping and still moving. So we're going to have a bunch more irrigation problems this year, and then we need to come up with some solutions for that. We have never addressed the problems on 17 yet when that hill slipped, and that is a liability to the town. So we have a couple of spots there. If somebody goes over with a golf cart, all of a sudden becomes a very dangerous situation. I mean, we have it roped, we have it marked, but sometimes that's not good enough. And so we still need to take care of a couple of those holes to make that golf course back to the way that it was originally. I don't know if there's anything else that you want us to talk about. Like I say, we haven't had a bright, even situation for the last 3 years. We're not here asking for money. We have done some things. We have added from 30 carts, we're up to 50 carts, and sometimes 50 carts is not enough, so we have some bills. We bought 3 or 4, Randy, lawnmowers. We're still making payments on those. We put up an entertainment, it's a tarp tent, and it's a permanent structure that's there, and that's been great for us to have our tournaments in. So they have somewhere to go in out of the wind to eat, because our clubhouse is not adequate, and so we put that up. That was our expense, and is an asset that's there for us to use. And so we have done a lot of things to the golf course. We have spent a lot of money on the golf course. We have no money left, and it's all gone. And that's kind of where we're at with that. And so,
Can I ask you something? I appreciate, first of all what you have done as a management group to provide some recreation, additional recreation in our town. There's no doubt that your business has been profitable to the golfers in this area. Having said that, I understand the concern that you have also with safety and slippage of the hill, and that definitely needs to be looked at. What I'm trying to understand, you bought, so you're saying you have increased the inventory of your own assets with the carts and with lawnmowers and all that. Do you as business practice, as suggested or recommended in your contract, send those bills directly to administration? Has that been done? Has that been your practice?
no, not to my understanding, but I don't think it needs to be.
It seems to me that any improvement that is done, I mean, if you buy lawnmowers and carts and stuff like that, there is a certain amount of improvement that I thought under the contract was to be given, but maybe Marian can help me understand that.
or let me address that maybe, and I'll see if this helps. Part of the contract was, before we took over the contract of the leasing the golf course, we had an independent person come from Calgary, from another golf course management group that was totally independent. We didn't know, the town didn't know. They came and did a total inventory of everything that was out there. So nuts, bolts, washers, lawnmowers, golf carts, all of that inventory. And that number was about $200,000, give or take. That's kind of where that was. In that $200,000, when we and if we decide at the end of the 10-year lease to leave and give the golf course back to you, we have to leave you with $200,000 worth of equipment.
Yeah.
If we didn't buy anything new, obviously that equipment wouldn't be worth the $200,000. So we upgraded and we've traded some stuff up. But if we get rid of what was the existing golf carts, if we get rid of 6 golf carts, old ones, and put 6 new into the fleet, we're not cumbersome to where we have to tell Marian what we've done. We just have to have that amount left at the end. Now, the town has its choice at the end. If we have $250,000 worth at the end, the town then could buy the $50,000 of merchandise from us if we had more golf carts. If the town says we don't want what you have, then we take $50,000 away. The 7 of us that's the lease holders, we all own a new golf cart then, and you end up with $200,000 worth of product back. Does that sound right,
I see
Marian?
that Marian wants to address something.
Yeah, that's correct, actually, when it's with equipment. I think what you're talking about, Mayor,
It's
is
the
the
improvement.
capital improvement.
Right.
And equipment wouldn't be considered in that capital improvement.
Correct.
So that's the report that Dean just referenced,
Okay.
that Ralph should have, that would outline what those capital improvements are. So that report
That we have to
is-
supply every year, yes, and we will do that.
Okay,
If we
all
have.
right,
We've
so,
done the first 2
yeah.
years, I believe, right, Marian? I think first and second year, I can check with Ralph,
Yeah,
but.
check with Ralph. I believe
Yeah.
I got the first year, but I'm not sure about
Okay,
the second.
I know he has the second year and he's just finished compiling the third year, so
Okay,
I'll
thank
make
you
sure.
for clarifying that. I
So,
appreciate
yeah,
that
the capital
clarification.
improvements, so that we just don't tell you that we did $15,000 worth, and
And
there's
there's
a rock
nothing,
there, it's
right.
your rock
Yeah.
type thing, then
Okay.
we itemize that out so that it equals that.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing with that, is just to clarify that too, is that if we have one of our workers do something, let's say we have one of our workers planting the 30 trees that we're planting, we can't use his labor
Against it.
against that. So if we contract him to do that, so that, or we contract Greenhaven or whoever to come in and plant trees or whatever, then that would be the capital expense. But we don't use our own personnel to do that, or if we do use our own personnel, we contract them beyond what their regular wage would be. So that it's not just maintaining sand traps. If we're going to build a sand trap, we make sure that they are building the sand trap for you, not for us.
Okay. I really think it would be useful because we're a new council, whenever, at your own convenience, that we may come and have a tour of the golf course. I think that would be a nice thing for this new council to
We
have
would love
a
that.
chance
We would
to do
love your
that.
council to come out there, whether it be a lunch hour or a dinner hour, and we'll throw some burgers on the barbecue and we'll take you for a tour. We will charge you green fees and then we will, and then we'll have a great time. No,
Thank you. We always knew you were extremely generous.
Yeah, just so, again, because we're a new council, getting on board with, was it last year, and only last year, that the decision was made to take the additional 10,000 to put toward capital improvements? Is that correct? Is that?
No, it's the
I
past 2 years.
don't know that it all went toward, it didn't go towards capital improvements, is what some of that 10,000 was for, was to help us to maintain that hill slippage.
Right, right.
Because we had to rebuild a green.
Yeah.
There was a couple of other things, there was an irrigation issue and there was some irrigation things, and so it was, and Marian would have all of those details. But my understanding, it wasn't to do with the capital improvements, it was more to do with the course improvements that needed to be done.
And forgive me for the terminology. So
That's okay.
just based on the report, and we appreciate the report, is it looking like we're going to need maybe that again, or more of the same, or?
At this point, we probably don't know, but yes to both of those. We're probably gonna need that again, and it's probably gonna be ongoing, and we've had conference with Marian, and there is some solutions, but they all come with dollars, and that hillside that the 16th green and that was put on probably should have never been put there, because it will always slip. And there is an alternative place that we can relocate that fairway, but there again, now we're looking at $100,000 to $150,000 to relocate that. But is that better than putting $20,000 a year into a hill that's slipping away? And that's going to be the question. And so we will have further discussions with Marian about that, and she can report back, and we're more than happy to come back and give you. And we've had Les Ferber is who actually designed the original course, and he's come and looked, and he's given us suggestions what could happen and where the new fairway could be, and he's helped us with that sort of thing. So.
Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? No? Thank you very much, Dean, and thank you very much, Randy. You need to add 2 cents worth.
No, I don't need even 1 cent.
Thank you, Randy.
We really would appreciate it, though, if you did come out, and whether you come out as individuals or you come out as a council, we would love to set that up and have you come out and tour the golf course and see what we have and see what we don't have and see what you would like to spend some more money on, and that would be awesome. So,
I know you're always looking for money.
yeah. We'd
right.
love to have you.
Thank you very much, but I think it's overdue, our visit is overdue, and when you're good and ready and open, we'll come.
Sounds good. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you so much.
And we'll try to convince Morgan that it's just falling apart out there and just not worth it.
And the taxes should
Yeah,
be zero.
should be.
In fact, it's got to the point they should pay us.
You can explain to them how that works. Yeah. We'll go into that in detail.
Morgan, we are glad to see you. This is Morgan Strait, Strady. Yeah, I don't like to say it Strady. I like to call him straight because it's straight on, you know. With assessment, it's always this way.
All right.
All right, Morgan Strady is with Benchmark Assessment and is going to give us a little bit of an education on how assessment is done. It's quite a complicated issue, and I'm happy to have you here help us to understand that prior to setting on your rate.
You wanted to do that now, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Okay.
I think it will
Give me
be
2 seconds here.
perfect. We're a little bit early, but we can carry on since Morgan is here. And now you'll swing.
Yeah.
Do you need help? No, thank you. Yes, pretty wicked.
Design something less awkward.
Well, we have to go over that far now.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody needs to shine the light.
The
It'll
pole
warm up
thing?
here a little
Just
bit.
baby steps.
The pole thing.
Can you bring it down?
I don't know what you call it.
Sure.
The pole, isn't it?
We're gonna get a screen.
Oh,
Yeah. Once that, see that, the jack will be fixed there and then we'll screen. But it'll be right uptown, Councillor.
Sorry, Councillor, I should have called it the projector.
There you go.
The projector, not just the pole.
Okay, this is, I guess I'll just start out by saying this is a council presentation that we put together quite a few years ago. We've been updating it constantly. We're set for new councillors to just kind of introduce them to what we do as assessors and how we come about, why we do what we do, and what's our legislation involved to give us the authority to do what we do. I don't know how much time you want me to spend on this, but We can talk about anything you guys want to talk about, that's what I'm saying. This is just kind of an introductory thing.
Would you like councillors to ask questions as we go along?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Absolutely. This is-
And Morgan, if I could, because this is information for the public as well, if you could turn that microphone and kind of keep it near you,
Oh,
that would be very useful to the viewers.
okay.
Thank you.
So we're live?
We are, we won't be tomorrow.
No pressure.
They're being filmed as well, so.
Okay, that changes everything. Okay, so this is forward. Okay. First of all, the assessor. I want to spend a little time about this, about the assessor. A lot of municipalities hire their own assessors. Not a lot, but some. If you're big enough and you can afford an assessor, and some do, but for the most part, most small towns can't. And they hire companies like me. And we were privatized in '95, and since then we've been running it, benchmark assessment, as a company. But there's certain qualifications that you have to do to be authorized to sign compliance at the end of the assessment term. This is the qualifications that are involved. This are the three that are recognized. Majority of the assessors have the AM8A designation. I just got my certificate, or will be getting my certificate for 35 years of service this spring, so I'm happy. I've been doing this for 35 years. And you have to have one of those qualifications to actually take over a town and do a town from start to finish. I have other people helping me, it's just not me. We have a whole office staff of 12 people. Benchmark does approximately 36 municipalities, and we have over 200,000 parcels that we're involved with. From varying sizes to the city of Brooks, county of Newell, which is one of the, probably the fourth richest municipalities in the province, to the latest municipality that we took over was Glenville. So we have, which is about 280 parcels. So we have a very wide array of municipalities, urban, rural, that we're involved in. This next slide talks about what is assessed. There's certain things that are assessed, certain things that we don't have the legislation to assess, like streets, roads, irrigation work. They're all exempt from assessment. We can't even put a value on them, per se. There's other things, but that just gives you a kind of idea. And the act actually defines what is to be assessed. A parcel of land, an improvement, a parcel of land, and the improvement to it. That word improvement gets a little ambiguous for ratepayers when they get their assessment and tax notice. They look at it and say, well, I haven't done $130,000 worth of improvements. Why are you assessing me with that much improvement? But it's improvements to the land that we're talking about here. It's not the improvements that you do from one year to the next, okay? That's just the term that is defined in the Municipal Government Act. That's the term that has to be on the assessment notice. Assessment versus taxation. The assessment is the process of placing a dollar value on a property for taxation purposes. The value is used to calculate the amount of taxes that will be charged to the owner of the property. And taxation is the process of applying a mill rate, which is a thousandth of a dollar, or a percentage, to the property's assessed value to determine the taxable payable by the owner of the land. I am responsible for delivering the assessment. You are responsible for doing the taxes. So at the end value, at the end of the day, you're the ones who put the dollar value for taxes on it. If I've done my job fair and equitably, then everything in the town should be assessed at a nominal rate and at market value. And I'll be talking about that a little bit. So this kind of outlines the relationship to assessment versus the tax levy. First of all, you determine how much it's going to cost to run this municipality, municipal budgets, and you have all sorts of requisitions that you have to take into account. the school foundation, the seniors foundation, all of those go into the makeup of your budgeting. And then that is divided by the total assessment base, which is created by me and the province. I'm responsible for all the local improvements, if you will, and the province added all of the linear, all of the, I guess it would be, in a rural municipality, it would be pipeline. In an urban municipality, it's electrical lines and power generations. That's what they do. I'm not responsible. That's done by the chief provincial assessor. I have no requisition to do that, or no jurisdiction to do that. Taxable versus exempt. Municipal Government Act, which is the MGA, exempts several types of property from taxation: schools, churches, hospitals, municipally owned properties, and nursing homes. Legislation allows municipalities to exempt nonprofit organization under the provisions of COPTR, Community Organization Property Tax Exemption Regulation. In order to qualify for COPTR, there's about 5 or 6 different things that a group, a society has to do to qualify. They have to register, I think, every 2 years at a certain date. They have to be a nonprofit organizations. All the money that they generate has to be put back into whatever organization they're running, and they cannot pay dividends to anybody involved in that. That's just a few of the criteria. There's other ones, but you have the authority to exempt nonprofit organizations. The legislation that we work with is the Municipal Government Act and the matters related to assessment and taxation regulation. Those are the 2 main sources of the power that I have. Everything that I do must be in 1 or 2 of those legislation manuals. Municipal Government Act, I think, I don't know, did any of you go last week to the forum that they had in Lethbridge? Mm-hmm. Did that answer all your questions that you had?
We set them straight.
Great, good to hear. So yeah, that's an ongoing process of what they're trying to do there. They review that. The difference between an act and a regulation that we work with, an act goes through the provincial legislation. A regulation is just set up through the minister. It comes through the minister. So they don't have to go through the parliament for that. Assessments are based on market value or regulated rates. Regulated properties include farmland, railway, machinery and equipment, and linear properties. But the value standard for the province of Alberta is market value. The regulated rates, that's totally set by the province. For instance, farmland rates were established in 1980, and they haven't changed much since. There has been no movement on the farmland rates. Railway rates, they have a base year modifier applied to them every year that brings it up or down according to what happens in the economy. Machinery equipment, it's totally set up by the government. We have manuals that we use for things like separators, treaters, heaters, and we use the installed costs. For the big gas plants that are going in, we get the reported costs on those. They're handled quite a bit differently. Just the depreciation on them is quite fast the way it goes down. But machinery and equipment doesn't pay any school foundation tax at all. It's exempt. So the tax rate is quite a bit different on them. Linear properties the rates are established by the provincial government. As I mentioned, I don't have the jurisdiction to do linear properties at all. Standards of assessment. As I mentioned, properties values are based on market value. We prepare them in a mass appraisal way of doing things. It reflects the typical market conditions for property similar to that of all the properties in comparisons for the different classifications that we use. It's an estimate of value of property as of July 1st of the assessment year. So in the case of the 2013 assessment that I've just delivered to the municipality, which is the 2014 tax year, the date that I have to set my rates on is July 1st. So I can't even use the analysis for the last 6 months of the year. So we're always a year behind in our assessments, according to the market value. And market value is defined in the Municipal Government Act as the amount that a property might be expected to realize if it is sold in the open market by a willing seller and buyer. We get all of the copies of land transfer that happen through land titles. They come directly to us through our office, and we get copies from the town office. We look at all the market sales, all the transactions that happen, and we have to determine if it's a good market sale or if it's estate planning. There's various reasons why people transfer. Every sale is not a market value, and so you have to weed those out and code them out so they're not part of your analysis that you're looking at there. We just have received the authority to go in through Spin 2 now, and we can look up every sale that happens. A lot of times the sale price was not published on there, and so we couldn't use that sale. But now through Spin 2 we can go in and we can find the details of every sale that happens, not just in Cardston but everywhere in southern Alberta. That was something that hasn't been set up before, and it's great because it saves us a lot of time. But the other thing is that we still have to inspect all of the sales that go through, just to see if there's any improvements or any changes that have happened since the buyer purchased or moved into the property. So we look at all the sales in the fall of the year to determine, first of all, what's included in the sale. Was there any chattels? Were there any appliances included? Because that has to be taken out. If there's any things like lawnmowers or any special items that were transferred without special notification. And that's what we're trying to do, is to really determine what the market value of just the land and the buildings are. And so we still have to do the inspections if we can.
How do you account for downturns in market values? Because I get that question asked all the time from my clients, in the real estate business. And, they come into me and they say, well, geez, I got this property, say it's assessed at $250,000, I only paid $165,000. How can they assess me at $250,000 when?
We'll be going into that. But we look at it every year and try to determine what the trends are. Okay. Yeah. If you'll notice on there, we've gone back 3 years of sales. That is the value standard that the province has set. Our auditors who look over our shoulders all the time, they say you have to go back 3 years of sales. And that's what we have to do. And so we establish the trends, whether they're up or down. And every year, I'll be talking about that a little more. Every year we have to make the adjustments to the different classes of locations of homes that we have there. And we have parameters of plus or minus 5% that we're using. So like I said, we're on a mass appraisal basis. We don't go in individually and say, okay, this person paid $200,000 for it. We've got it assessed at 180. We're going to raise it up. That's not the way it works. Unless it's extreme circumstances where we find when we're doing the inspection that we haven't got the basement finished there, and that was included in the sale, then we would raise it up. We would have a reason. But just to go and say we're $20,000 short of the sale, that's not the way it works. Okay. And there's some sales that are they just don't make any sense. You can't use them because, like I said, it's...
For instance?
Pardon?
Give me for instance on that.
Well, you might have a place where they were not an informed buyer or an informed seller. Came into a town, we see it all the time where people come into town from BC where they're used to lots higher values, and they'll just pay exorbitant prices. And you probably see that.
So, did you just say that you adjust for that, and so you tax them on the lower value?
No. No, we don't make any adjustments for that, unless it becomes the norm, because we're dealing with the middle of the road here all the time. We're always looking for the average. When you talk assessments, you talk an average. So that's the average sale price that we're looking for in the different class of homes that you see before you. Okay?
Morgan, if I understand the concept, if you happen to buy a house at a higher price that really the true market value should have been, so you paid more than you should have,
Yes.
then all the houses around you or in your neighborhood are affected by your purchase, are they?
No, because one sale does not a market create.
Okay.
We do not jump for one sale.
Okay,
Unless we don't have enough sales and we have to hang our hat on that, we would not do that.
okay.
It-
So it
we're always
doesn't
looking for the
represent a
middle.
trend?
Pardon?
It does not affect the trend?
Not one sale, no,
Thanks.
no.
So I understand that it doesn't affect the trend, but for that property, is that property now going to be taxed at that rate?
If we see something like that where it's totally way out of whack, we might, well, we would try to investigate and see if it was a good sale. If we make the inspection and we find something totally different than our records, like the whole house has been gutted and they've totally changed everything, yes, it will. But if everything's the same as when we according to our records, we would not. And that's called sales chasing, and you don't want to get involved in that, because when you do that, you destroy your equity, because you have one house that's much higher than the whole neighborhood, and you lose your local, just the whole concept is gone. And lots of assessors have got caught up in that, trying to meet audit standards, and it's not the way to go.
So you may end up with an assessment that's lower than what you paid for the house.
Oh, absolutely.
Or higher.
Absolutely.
Or higher.
Yeah,
The-
for
the
every
opposite
5
might
sales
be
that are
true.
below my parameters, and I'll be talking about that, I have to have 5 sales above my
That's
parameter
right.
too.
Yeah.
So we're looking for the middle all the time, okay?
Good.
So there's two dates that are crucial in the assessment. One is the value date, where I have to set the market value as of July 1st, 2013 in the new assessment. Like I said, I can't use any sales in my analysis after that date. And that's why we're a year behind. And that's to ensure that all the properties in the municipality are valued at the same time. Now, like I said, we use 3 years of sales, and as you know, Dennis, that the market is moving all the time, depending on the month that you use. We use a factor called the time adjustment, and it takes into account and levels out the trends that you're talking about, highs and lows. It finds the mid-range of all the sales over the month. I could have included that, I probably should have, but it'll show you. From starting point 3 years ago, the sales up and down, up until the end of the second term of 2013. And so what we do is we find the middle ground for that line, and then we adjust the sales accordingly, up and down, to come up with a straight line trend for those 3 years.
Morgan, how far afield do you go with the sales? Like, say you're assessing Glenwood now.
Yes.
Their property values may be a little different than Cardston, so.
Oh, okay. I see what you mean. No, we don't change from one municipality to the other. It's just the sales you see before you are just for the town of Cardston. We don't mix municipalities. The only place that I've even looked at comparing one was Hill Spring and Glenwood, just because of the proximity. I didn't have a lot of data to go through in Glenwood, and so I looked over to Hill Spring to see what we were doing over there, and kind of had to make some major changes there to Glenwood, just because some values I couldn't justify. And not that I was looking at particular sales, I was looking at what I was doing with the land in Hill Spring as opposed to Glenwood.
Now, if in one category in town, there are no sales for that year.
Well, then
So
we
how
would
do
use
you-
the previous year. And we've had to do that in a small town, a village like Glenwood. There was no sales of certain properties 2013, so we have to go to 2012. We don't have any sales there, we go back to 2011. It's just the data that we have. And what we do, we also look at listings too. See where we are in comparison to the listings, usually take off about at least 10%. In some cases, depending on what the market's doing. So we look at all the factors that we can. We also go through all of the MLS listings and sales, because in those, gives us a lot of details. We can find out a lot of details. We can download all the pictures that we want, just from the MLS listings and sales. And it tells us if we've got the right amount of basement finish. It tells us when the kitchen was renovated, when the bathrooms were updated. It's all there. And that's what we really know, because the kitchen, the bathroom really determine, that's the best place to spend your money if you're renovating a house. That's where the wife likes to see the money go.
That's what maintains the value of a house.
That's right.
Or brings it up.
That's right. Yep. And the worst place would be the basement. So you get your worst return on any development you do in the basement, because you can't recapture it. I mean, you will to a degree, but not the full cost. And so as a result of that, we take 25% of all the basement finishes off. Just trying to recognize that fact. Just recently, like in the last 5 years, basements have been finished with the house when it's being built. That's kind of the norm now. But before that, they weren't. And as a result, it was usually a home handy hardware type of guy doing it, and it wasn't as good a quality as the upstairs. Okay. Did I go through this slide? Valuation date, condition, physical condition date. Okay, I want to talk about that. December 31st is our physical condition date. We have to value the home as of July 1st for market value, but the physical condition date is what percentage of the house is completed as of that date. Okay, that's the physical condition date. And we just use that for progressive homes. So if the house is in, usually what happens by December 31st, if they have a fall start, it's an enclosed shell, so they can work on it all winter. And we would probably have that at about 44% complete, with no mechanicals on the inside of it. And so that's the way it stays until the next year's inspection cycle. They can move in it in February, but the assessment, the taxes won't change until the next fall, next year. Okay? Mass appraisals, I think I've already mentioned this. This is the way that we do a large amount of properties in a short period of time. The process of valuing a group of properties in the different classifications that we have as of a given date, using the common data, the sales, the market modeling, and the statistical testing to make sure that we're in the parameters. And because we use mass appraisals, like I said, we're always looking for the middle of the road, standard deviation and all of that, we can come up with the accurate value within the parameters allowed in a short period of time on a mass appraisal basis. And that's just used throughout the whole province, theoretically. If you were to have an appraiser come and evaluate your property, he would use 3 approaches to value. He would use the cost approach, he would use the sales comparison approach, and he would use the income approach, depending on the type of property that we're involved in. The way the assessments are done is we have an assessment manual put out by the province. It's called the 2001 Assessment Manual. They haven't put out another one since then. We've just heard that they are going to be putting out a new manual. And it is based on replacement costs. It's based on depreciated replacement costs, actually. And what that does is it comes up to what it would cost to build a home using X amount of dollars per square foot, and then depreciates it down based upon the age. After we use the manual, because of the different market zones that we have, the different regions, the different towns, the different villages, we have to adjust that sale price or adjust that assessed value to come up with the current value. And the way that we do that is we determine where the market value of these average homes are selling for, and we apply a market modifier. And that changes every year according to what the local market tells us, according to the sales that we see before you. So that incorporates two of the approaches right there. The income approach is just done for commercial and industrial properties, special use properties. When we talk income, we're talking about what the property is generating by rentals. We're not talking about a business. We don't care how many widgets are actually produced. That's not what we're analyzing here. Oop, did I go? So the way that we do it, and you see the different categories of houses that we use there, it's based on the age, the size, the condition, the overall appearance, puts that house into different categories. And I'll be going over that with you in the handout that I have. Okay? How much time do I have here?
Are you good?
We're okay?
Yeah.
Because I can speed this up.
You're fine.
Time's an issue.
Do you need another 15 minutes or something like
Sure,
that?
I can go as long as
Okay,
you
well,
want.
if you say another 15,
not 50.
I always get those
Just to
confused.
no, 1-5.
I'll move it right along. So what we do is we put the assessed value, for instance, if you have an assessed value of 90, I get away from the mic here. We have an assessed value of 95,000 and it sells for 100,000, then our ratio is 95%. It works the other way too. If we have it assessed at 105 and it's sold for 100,000, then the ratio is going to be 105. Both are still within the parameters. Okay, I've talked about the rest of that. 95, 105, the COD, coefficient of dispersion, that's the range within the different classifications that we use. And we have to do this for all different categories of houses, like I mentioned. If we don't have enough sales, we might combine some of the classifications, just so we have enough sales to give us a good stratification of where the sales are. The cost approach, I've already talked about. We use the cost approach mainly for commercial properties that are owner-occupied because there's no value generated there. They don't support the 84 manual anymore. They come up with a new manual. So we have to go to the Marshall-Swift cost approach. And it's the one that's recognized throughout North America for costing of commercial operations. The income approach, I think I've mentioned enough about that. That's one thing that we want to concentrate on this year, is the income approach. It's just another tool that we use to check where we are in comparison to the market based upon the depreciated cost. We have to determine the net operating income and divide it by a capitalization rate. And that's set by the industry standards usually. Asset is basically Big Brother looking over my shoulder to make sure that I am following the legislation, that everything is in accordance with the way things are done. After I've completed my assessment, I have to ship everything that I do up to Edmonton for clarification. And I can't declare that I've completed the assessment by February 28th is our date that we have to be completed and shipped. Until I send the indicators of value, which is before you on the legal size. The indicators of values is is analyzed, and they say, okay, yeah, you're within the parameters, ship the rest of it. And so it's actually a two-part process to get the data into Edmonton. Audit is always looking over and make sure that we're following the regulation. Compliance, that just means that we meet the standards that are set out. Assessment audit. Assessment audits are done every about 5 years. Detailed auditors come and just check over all of the things that we do. They'll pick random houses and see how we did them. They dig a little deeper than just a superficial annual audit that has to be carried out. This just talks about the assessment appeals, the changes that have happened, the appeal period from 30 days to 90 days, I don't agree with. I think that's ridiculous.
Causes you more headaches, is what you're saying?
Well, yeah, it's like if the guy doesn't know within 30 days whether his assessment is not right, I just think it's for tax consultants to drum up more business. I think that's why they instituted the extra 30 days. I just don't understand that at all. CARP and LARP, pretty straightforward. And that's about it for the slides. Okay, so any other questions about that?
Well,
Okay.
thank you for that presentation. Now, I know that you may want to go through the other documents that have been given to us.
Yes, all this
Okay.
does is prove that we are compliant with the legislation for the
Okay.
different classifications of homes. The first page is just the value of sales that I use. When you're preparing an assessment, you have to start with getting the land right. If you don't get the land right, it skews your whole assessment all the way up. And so
Oh,
we
you're
start at the
looking at
base,
this
yes.
one? Thank you.
These are the different sales that we use for vacant land. I've broken it down into the different years that we've met. You can see that your land has not changed by the median that is at the bottom of, it's on the right-hand side. On the ratio as far right as you see. Shows the ratio of all the sales that are listed there and the median of each. And you can see the average sale price for a lot. It becomes somewhat skewed depending on the different sizes of the parcel, but that's why we stick to the median.
Just to make sure I'm reading this right, the fact that it says 98.8 in that first category, does that mean that generally assessments are dropping?
No.
No.
It just
No.
means it's within the range.
That's right.
Of 95 to 105.
That's exactly right.
That's where it has to be.
Okay.
That's where I have to be. And if it wasn't within those ranges, then I would have to make some adjustments.
Okay.
But you can see from 2010 to 2013, it's always been right in there. It is right within there. And you can see on the next page, well, this is just the different types of types of housing that we use. From the economy, which is the lowest class that we do. The median is 100%. Old style character homes, fair and average quality. There's a limited amount of sales there. But you can see our median there is 101.4. And so on it is for each one of the different classifications that we use for this. If you go to page 3, this type of home, this average quality home, there's more of these homes in Cardston than anywhere else. And that's because they were built in the 50s and the 60s when there was a big boom on, and the 70s. After 1980, they had to use 2x6 construction. These are 2x4 construction. Okay, and you can see the trend through the different years the way I've broken up. In 2010, we were 102.4, 2011, 101.5, 2012, 96%. 2012, 96.4% indicates that there's an increase in the market value of these homes based upon these sales that we have. And then in 2013, you see a median of 103, indicating that there's a drop in the value for 2012 and 2013. Okay? This type of home is kind of the canary in the cage for us because there's so many sales. And we use this to kind of determine where we're at and what's happened to the trend within a municipality. Custom homes, these are, before 1980, these are still 2x6, or 2x4 construction, sorry. Average quality, after 1980, these are the 2x6 homes at the bottom of page 4. These are the very boxy plain homes, RTMs, modular homes, not trailers, but modular homes. Very affordable. You can see the average sale price on those is about $230,000. What else can I tell you? Most of the homes are on page 5, the top. These are the semi-custom homes built after 1980. This is probably the majority of homes that are being built right now because they're kind of an upscale home. Very nice, and the average sale price on these homes is about $305,000. And our median is 99.4 on these homes. And basically that it shows, what I brought this for is to show you that we are within the parameters. There hasn't been a lot of change in the market value in Cardston that I've seen in the last year. In fact, when I look at the market modifiers that we apply, adjusting it to fill in, to make the difference of whether we're high or low, I didn't have to change any of those from last year. So it's very constant, very flat market value overall from what I've seen. That doesn't mean that things aren't going up or things aren't going down. It's just the average sales for what I have to work with tell me that there hasn't been a lot of change.
So the general assessment of the properties in this town is pretty well the same as last year?
Well, yes, pretty well the same. We have, as I indicated, we have base year modifiers that we have to apply every year. Right now it's 1.85. So it'll go up because of the base year modifier, but then you have depreciation that brings it down again. So the average, I should have looked up what the average increase is for the different classifications of home. But I can't see an increase of over, if everything is constant, if there's been no change, I can't see an increase of over 2-3% overall.
Thank you.
Okay, this last page is just showing you the value of the assessment summary. Your new assessment values are there. The assessment growth is there. Looks like about a 1.2% increase overall in your assessment base. And the last few pages are just what I had to submit to the government. It does all of these different valuation ranges, make sure that everything is copacetic and is not skewed, and I meet the parameters and so on. That's about it.
So if I understand, the assessment that you have on that page, the first page, is what the town would be using to set
Yes.
the mill rate?
Yes. There is one factor that's not included in this, and this is the linear assessments. The power and pipe is not included in that.
Right.
That's not even in our system.
And
That
that's
is
something
added.
that is sent to administration directly from the province?
That's right, directly to the town.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions for Morgan Spade? No questions? Thank you so much. It was a good education session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just have
Marian?
you
Yeah,
provide
it's
these back so
confidential
they can be
and
shredded
it should
because
be
they're
shredded.
confidential information.
Yes,
In
we
fact, if you want to...
rely on a lot of people to give us the information, and we don't like this published. Otherwise, they won't talk to us anymore. You can keep the bottom one if you'd like.
Yeah, this is...
Ones that have names on them.
It's a
And
long one.
if you would like me to
if you'd like to keep that, I can just take the names off for next time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, name and address.
Name and address I can take off.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing, so we can have
Sure,
a closer understanding.
certainly
Thank
can
you
do
so
that.
much.
You're welcome.
All right. Okay. Well, we need to go back to business here and to go to item 5, adoptions of minutes for February 25th. I need a motion to approve the minutes. Thank you, Councillor Barfuss. Moves to approve the minutes of the council meeting of February 25th, 2014. Any questions regarding? Okay. Time to vote. All in favor? Thank you. Minutes are approved. All right. Business arising. You can see there are a few items coming up for us under number 7.
The strategic plan, or which one?
We're going to look at item 7, request for decisions, that all come from, I can't
On
think
your
of
agenda, the
Okay.
7th day.
Okay, 7
Are you okay?
Yep.
Thank you. All right, those are recommendations that came from the council meeting of the whole. And so we need to address the first item. It's Mrs. Smith water billing. Mr. Smith had expressed his concern regarding his water billing, and I really think that you need to take a minute or two to read his new letter that was distributed to you to try to understand the changes.
Here come, there's also in the background, or there's a little report as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
We will talk about all those different items, maybe if we take the time to understand this letter. Okay. There are some items there that maybe change things a little bit for us. But there are a few things that need to be addressed. Did you have enough time to read this document? Okay. Okay, so the issue has to do over a bill of water that goes back to October 2011. In fact, it goes even further back to July of that year. This is what the background was, is that in 2011, July and August 2011, administration went back to NMAX and got the billing for that period and determined that 2 bill cycles were billed at the old rate, which was about $54, $59 per month around that time. I don't have the exact figure. Maybe administration could give us that.
2 months. We're just pulling it up here, just one second.
Thank you. Maybe you can give us that in a minute. Afterwards, we passed the new bylaw, and the rate were given at a flat rate because there was no water meter on those premises. Administration reviewed the actual charges and came up with the figures for 17 months to be 2,432.68, which was different.
Well, this is based on averages. I think that's a real.
Yeah, so we had the actual, if you remember, the original paper that Mr. Smith gave us showed about 2,700 and some odd dollars.
Right.
So administration figured out that really the true charge was 2,432.68, which is higher than what Mr. Smith just presented tonight of 2159. Am I correct?
Yes. The one difference we're noting here is Mr. Smith has on his letter through January 2013, but we actually have an invoice for the higher amount into February, and that's just based on how those readings take place,
correct.
And then they get billed,
Yes,
right?
always
So
1
in
month
January,
later.
it would be billed in February.
Yeah. Okay.
And just for your information, the first 2 months under the old bylaw, the water portion, now this isn't sewer as well, but the water portion was 1513 and 2497 respectively.
And with the sewer,
We don't have the sewer amounts on that,
I just have the water.
just the water.
but we can assume that it was about
So at least double that.
double that,
Yeah.
yes. Councillor Peavoy?
Yeah, so I just want to understand one quick, and maybe this is a question for administration, one quick thing that's maybe not clear to me. So we, obviously, in October 2011, we changed it so it's $100 for the unmetered water. We sent out notifications encouraging people to get a meter. There was a buffer period of time where we would do it at our cost, at a meter. And then if they opted not to get a meter, after a certain date, they would have to pay to get the meter. Is that right?
That was
Years
years
That was
before
years
the
before.
$100 implementation.
So I guess what I'm getting at there on that issue, and because I think it's related, is if a former homeowner made the decision to not get it, and then another, in this case, it's a business tenant, right? Tenant moves in, not aware that it's unmetered. I'm just wondering, if perhaps we're not, notifying people enough that it's not metered? Because, I think, I would wager I moved into town after that change happened. I wouldn't know if my own personal residence wasn't being metered. I would just assume from the bill, and in that case, it's a home, but, apply this to a business. There's no way that we can communicate to new people coming in, new tenants, new homeowners, that, hey, by the way, you're not being metered. Is that right? We're not taking any
Well,
actions
first of
to
all,
notify.
we don't take the information on new tenants or new homeowners.
Right.
For the utilities, because it's all billed through Inmax, right?
It would be impossible for us to
If the
know.
tenant brings it to our attention, then we're able to deal with that, which is the case in Robert's case, because when he came with the invoices, it was explained to him that, yes, that's why. Now, is there a way that we can formulate something with Inmax, potentially, to look at those, flag those somehow that are on a non-metered rate? The possibilities there, I would have to look into the logistics of that with Inmax. There's some privacy issues as well, right, that we have to be very cautious about. So.
If I might, and Madam Mayor, I asked Tara, she will go through and audit all the billing codes of unmetered over the years, and again, the meters were changed out years ago.
Right.
And she has systematically contacted everybody who hasn't had one.
Since last,
Since-
since
Since
little while?
over the years, over the last
years.
6 years or
Yeah.
so, as we've been able to work on them.
She does an annual audit. It's not something she does on a monthly basis, because obviously that's quite in-depth. But she does have it scheduled to do an annual audit.
One other thing to keep in mind too is Mr. Gibbings, the landlord, was aware he didn't have a meter, but there was no financial difference in the rate. So it didn't make a lot of difference to him whether he installed one or not. So that was the difference, that it happened in October, where now there was a financial difference. But previous to that, there wasn't.
Well, and the increase went in after Mr. Smith moved in there.
Correct, and so he got kind of caught in that, being unaware originally, and then the change in the rate as well, so
Mhm.
it was kind of a double thing.
Councillor Creed?
Just, I'm still a little curious about on the bills, because like on my utility bills, they show a little graph kind of indicating whether you're, up or down throughout, over the past year. And I don't know what they do on an unmetered, they wouldn't be able to
Show usage.
to show any usage on that. That's kind of my question, is if the bills themselves say somewhere on the unmetered rate, I mean, they wouldn't, because they wouldn't be able to put a usage graph on them.
I don't think they do.
Okay.
For water, they don't put a usage graph. It's your electricity and gas and the usage graph.
Like the usage graph on water, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for that specifics on the bill, I'd have to look at the bill, and I don't have it with me, it was in the CCW agenda.
Mhm.
So I don't have the physical bills, but maybe, anyway, I don't know that it relates to it, but.
Yeah, I don't know, well, it just seems like it should be.
Maybe I would like to address them from a point of view that maybe goes along with your point of view, Councillor Peavoy. It has to do maybe with the idea of due diligence. There is due diligence that has to be had from two parties, the town and the person that receives the service, which in this case is Mr. Smith. So I looked at it from this kind of point of view, because really, at the end, that is what we have to decide on. Has there been enough due diligence, and is there then a reason for adjusting the request to a level that is fair, being waived or meet somewhere in between? So the way I look at it is this way. First of all, Mr. Smith told us that he did not know there was a meter in a building. So he was not informed by the landlord, but as Jeff mentioned, it would not have made specifically a difference at that time, because the landlord would have had no reason to think the rates were going to be different. They were, in fact, in July and August, the same as what he paid himself for the tenant, with same billing. But there are other things that we need to consider. There was in a paper of July 30th of 2011 a notice of public hearing that was posted in a Temple Star for review of Bill 1582. And then there were rates that were posted in that same paper on July 23rd, July 30th, June 23rd, June 30th, and July the 7th. So, in other words, 3 weeks on a row, the rates were posted, and the town was sending a message. There were changes coming. Regardless that you were meter or not meter, there were changes coming, and significant changes coming. So, because Mr. Smith did not know there was no meter, he can argue that he would not have looked at the non-meter commercial rate, which is fair. But rates change were coming regardless. And also, after we had the public hearing, Mr. Riemann, who was a columnist, editorialist for the paper, wrote in his column in that paper that there were changes that occurred for residential, industrial, and commercial. So there was plenty of chances for someone to read the paper and be aware that there had been changes. But Mr. Smith was a good bill payer, and I got to give it to him, paid his bills, and did not notice the changes after 2 months. So he paid very little for 2 months, and then a lot But somehow, 19 months elapsed, or 17 months elapsed afterwards, before that problem was caught. And he explained to us why he compared it with his home building. So that is the due diligence maybe was not totally exercised by Mr. Smith. Now, if I look at the town side, the town published a hearing, had tried 3 times to have a meter set up on that property, published their rates on 3 occasions. The only thing the town didn't do, maybe is republish the final rates. And as you mentioned, NMAX did not notify the customer. But otherwise, what is then, can we say that the town did not exercise due diligence? That truly is a question. And that's up to you to help me here.
Well, yeah, and I hear what you're saying. I guess my comment, I'm looking at, our decision today, I think we're all aware, is probably going to be regarded as a precedent, right, on issues. And if we go a certain way, we might open the floodgates, right? And so I'm kind of just a little bit more concerned with, even in the future, if someone takes over a property in the future, like tomorrow, they move in, they wouldn't know about any of that. So the town's due diligence on that wouldn't really help the guy moving in there tomorrow on not realizing he's in an unmetered situation. So, I'm just saying, hey, we might want to make, continue, it sounds like we're doing some regular calls or something, ongoing notifications, that would be good. You mentioned, and maybe just a quick question for administration, you mentioned that sometimes calls are made. Who was it that's doing the calls?
Tara.
So Tara's making some calls.
Yeah.
Is it possible in the last 15 months that Tara did call Temple City?
Not that I'm aware, but I couldn't speak to that. One thing maybe to bring to your attention though is, Jeff was just saying, he asked Tara how many unmetered sites we have when he was prepping this for the meeting, and she said in her records it's only showing one other site that is now non-metered. They've been doing a lot of work to try and get meters in.
So this isn't going to open a huge floodgate. We might just have one more person say,
Well,
hey, I didn't know.
that's currently what her records were showing.
This is
Now,
like an anomaly.
Again, she'll be doing her annual audit,
Okay.
and there may be some things that pop up, because what we're finding with the hail damage and all the repair with the siding and all of that, a lot of the remote readouts were removed and not put back. And that's caused us a bit of grief, because it's showing these unregistered meters in homes, or unreadable meters in homes. And so this last year, we've spent a lot of time and effort trying to get that back on track. So we might be off on our unmetered sites by 1 or 2, but there isn't a substantial number left in town that don't have meters.
And to that, Councillor, the one other unmetered owns the meter, he just doesn't have it installed. So he's well aware that
He's
it
well
needs to
aware.
be put in.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, although I think it was mentioned last meeting that we have, like, for instance, all of Moses Lake are unmetered. but-
No, the individual homes are unmetered,
Mhm.
but the water going out is metered.
Oh, okay, the water, so we meter to the community.
Yes, but
Oh,
they
okay.
all pay an unmetered rate because they
Oh.
don't have meters installed on their homes.
Okay,
But we do have the water metered, just so that's clear.
okay.
We are tracking
And
what's
and
going out there.
who pays the town, just curious, who pays the town on that? Do they pay as a community for the total amount, or does each home pay?
I think each home is invoiced, but some of them may be going to the Blood Tribe.
No.
Yeah. But again, that's an NMAX issue,
Mhm.
because they take care of the billing
Mhm.
and
they
the
take care of the
collection. So
collection.
I'm not totally up to speed on where that sits right now.
Mhm.
Question.
Go ahead.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I seems to me in the conversation we had last week regarding this situation, that if Mr. Smith had been, started off at the lower rate and hadn't been notified of the change afterwards, and he was paying that we were going to be responsible to reimburse him. Was that part of the conversation
Well,
that we had? Because I remember
So we had,
Councillor Edmonds, I think you were the one who mentioned that. And then I asked Councillor Bengry, and he said, yeah, that's what we probably should do.
what we did not know is if Mr. Smith had paid any of the bills at a lower rate.
Yeah, well,
And he had.
it appears that he has here.
He paid 2 bills at a lower rate,
Yeah,
but did not for over a year and a half
yeah.
notice the changes
Mhm.
when he paid his bill.
Yeah.
But, so, here's a question. How much responsibility do you have as a bill payer to look after your bills and make sure that what you're paying is what you should be paying? Or do you have so much trust in the system that you pay what they ask?
so that's where, go ahead.
How many of you know how much you pay for water every month?
I do.
I check my bill.
I checked my bill, but I,
Yeah, not off the top of my head.
My-
I'd have to go look at it.
My question though is that if I'm paying $59 regularly and it goes to $200,
It knows it
I
pretty quick.
probably notice that. I might not be looking at my bill, breaking it down, how much I'm paying for water, how much I'm paying for electricity, but a jump of that much should trigger something.
Yeah.
But I agree with the mayor in that, you know, there's the argument that there's some shared responsibility here. And so when we had talked at CCW, we had talked about paying for, splitting that bill in half and the town being responsible for reimbursing half of it. And I think that's what we should look at.
Is that your motion?
I'll make that
Councillor?
motion.
Any other?
I just also want to point out, there were a couple additional anomalies to this whole thing. The fact that, you know, we were double billing you for, Mr. Smith for water going to other places in the building, you know, that was, I mean, it just kind of looks weird. And also, just on a personal note, you know, you move to a new location, you start a new business, whatever, that first month of utility bills, you kind of write that off as, you know, because there's additional fees and stuff. You don't really consider that one. Second month, that's like a gray, fuzzy area. And then, you know, but after that, like if you'd had 6 months of one and then it changed, well, that would be more noticeable. I'm not sure that 2 months is a fair estimate on really getting to know your bill, because the first 2 months of all my bills are unclear to me.
But it's still your bill.
Yeah, sure.
Right, still your responsibility.
The last thing I really kind of, I guess I'm having a hard time understanding here. We have this number of 203 on here, but the flat rate is 100. So I'm getting lost in this other 100.
$100 on both sides.
Both sides, water and wastewater.
Oh, is that what that is? Okay. I thought the wastewater
I
was
also
different
want
things,
to
so-
let you know that when Mr. Smith called, the bylaw asked for the landowner to pay for the meter and the installation if he wanted town to put the installation. The town, of their own generous heart, paid the meter and the installation to a total of $252, something like that, around there.
285.
285 with the labor. Okay, so that is also something that is not disclosed anywhere, but I question.
That's what we did in
I've
January.
I've got a question on that.
Okay.
That bill is charged to whom?
To nobody. The town did that to you as a favor.
You didn't have to pay.
To put the water meter in?
Yes. The
My
town-
understanding was that Steve Gibbons, as soon as we were aware, we immediately contacted Cody Thompson. He came and put the meter in, and Steve Gibbons paid him for the installation of that. Paid for both the meter and that's my understanding. I don't think the town was involved at all. We were told that the town would not cover it, and that's why we got Cody in there, and we paid for I shouldn't say we, Steve Gibbons,
That is
I
not,
believe paid for.
that is not what administration gave me for information, so that is something that needs to be
Yeah,
verified.
my understanding was that Steve was totally responsible, and I understood he took care of the whole works.
Thank you for that information.
And we understand from our staff that it was installed, so I can't speak to that other than what we both understand from other people. So I don't know, does that have an effect on your decision?
No.
I don't think it does.
Just,
Okay, there is a motion on the
it's a
table.
$200 tab.
There is a motion on the table.
I think Bill's got a question.
Just one, for administration, the difference of what was billed, that was going over to Pro Hardware, that's been taken care of?
It will be taken
Or will.
care of on the next billing cycle. We've calculated all of that, but
Yeah.
we're not going to
Yeah.
adjust it until the meters are separated.
Okay.
Because otherwise, we're going to have to adjust every
Yeah.
month. So as soon as the plumbing is changed there, then that adjustment will be made, because it may be more than what we've currently calculated.
So that doesn't affect anything, our decision either? Okay.
No. Okay, Graham, would you please read the motion of Councillor Barfuss one more time?
That was a good time.
Thank you, perfect.
Moved by Councillor Barfuss to pay back half of the rate paid by Robert Smith for the unmetered rate charged to him from October 2011 to February 2014 in the amount of $1,217.34. And I still have to take out one or two words that I...
Okay.
So I want to emphasize that it's the higher calculated rate.
It's
The rate that's on the background
It's
here.
half of the 2,400, not the 2,100 that Mr. Smith gave us.
Right.
So half
Yeah,
of the
so you
24.
probably maybe need the word difference in there, because
Yes.
it's half of the difference, not half of the bill.
Half of the bill. It's
Right.
half the difference.
That's half the difference.
And the amount should be stipulated in,
1262, 44, or
Yep.
34.
Yeah, 12.
Madam Mayor.
Can we round that up? Because, you know, it's pennies, penny pinch.
What does it come?
I'm fine with that.
Is it okay if I make another comment?
Please.
I'd just like to, and it's been discussed a little bit, but I was totally unaware that we did not have a meter, and therefore unaware that the bylaw of October 2011 would apply. And I find Councillor Peavoy kind of brought up the fact that we were busy making the move. I'm trying to run the Temple City Star and Trojan Printing as well, so I'm fairly busy. So the bills come in, I get them paid. And I know NMAX's bill fluctuates all the time. Electricity, wastewater, sewer, the whole works fluctuates quite a bit. So I probably didn't pay as much attention to it because of the business that I'm in. But I find when I take a close look at it now, Steve Gibbons was paying $20 a month at the time, and it jumped to $100. That's 500% increase. Now, yes, I should have probably noticed that, but not knowing what was going on and moving in to the business, as soon as we found out the difference there, we took immediate action. But I was totally unaware of having a meter and that 500% increase was hitting us.
I agree with you, except that through your own paper, there were really 4 different times where there was something there that should have twigged.
And I know at that time...
It was a
yes.
half-page ad.
Well, if I may, I think what Mr. Smith is saying is even though the ads were there, and assuming he read
He
them all,
was not
he wasn't
paying.
aware it affected his
Yeah, but-
business.
You see, let me give you a precedent that happened with the last council, and maybe it'll help you understand. We have had past council, some citizens who have come, who have asked us to take away all the charges on their overdue taxes because they were unaware that the bank had not done this or done that or the other, or they were unaware of the date of payment, etc. And past council has always said it is a responsibility of a citizen to look after their own financial affairs. And we cannot excuse everything. So that was a precedent, just to give you an idea, And 3 of us of that old council are still on that council, and we'll remember that quite clearly. The only time where we changed that was a new business owner that was not from this country and really did not understand the 3 different dates that were on that taxation bill, and really didn't realize that they ended up by paying the one with a penalty when it was absolutely not their understanding. That's the only time that we changed that way of dealing with those questions. So that is maybe the same kind of principle that needs to be applied. You cannot ignore the law, you cannot be ignorant of the law. It's true of anything.
Mayor, if I might, my thoughts on it stem from justice demands that the full amount be paid. But I think that there is a place for mercy to be here as well.
Exactly right.
Which is why I propose in my motion that we cover half of that to alleviate some of that burden that took place through there.
Mr. Smith, I cannot say that I don't understand your plea, but I think through the discussion, we had a good discussion, and I think it's maybe time to vote. So the motion on the table is to reimburse 50% of the difference of the bill at the higher rate as indicated by administration. So.
Can I just ask for a dollar amount to be in that motion as
Yes.
well?
You know what, that's a
The
good
amount
idea.
is
And let's round it up.
Is 12,
$1,216.34 is the half of what Jeff had put in.
So 1,200.
I mean, if you
Yes,
want to put it at
Let's go
1,250 is
Twelve.
quite fine.
How about round up to 1220?
1,220, okay, there you go.
One more comment here in regards to NMAX. I mean, speaking with NMAX, NMAX said that they would make some adjustments. Could that be another portion of the motion? In NMAX, you request NMAX to adjust things accordingly so that my bill isn't so large with NMAX. If they were to come
Administration
into
could maybe
play.
deal with that aspect. I do not really deal with NMAX, but administration does.
Is that adjustment that you're referring to there, is that the double billing that was
Yeah,
taking place there?
any
Is that-
adjustment that NMAX would
It's-
make would directly affect our revenue, because all that revenue is for water and sewer comes directly to the town. We pay them a fee to administer that. So the adjustment, I would assume, would be whatever motion council made, but they would be able to adjust the amount that was double billed for the pro hardware, that would come from direction from us as
Just a
well.
quick question.
So I'm not sure what they
Yeah,
meant
go
by
ahead.
they might be able to
Just-
adjust it.
Now, when this motion is completed, does Mr. Smith get that adjusted through his bill, or does he get a check back from the town?
Through his bill, we would do
Okay.
it through the bill,
All right.
because it adjusts the revenues for us
Okay,
moving forward.
so, any more questions? Seeing none, let's go to.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, it's fine.
Okay,
Sorry,
Just want the last
just for
word. No.
clarification,
Okay.
and sorry, I was just thinking about Councillor Barnes' comments. Because Mr. Smith has already paid all of these bills, if council chooses, we could just cut a check and.
That's what I was just gonna say.
And not
That would be
have
my
it- and not
preference.
I
even
would
involve-
rather see
That's
that.
the first-
Because otherwise, how are you
That's-
going
think it's
we
better.
could-
If that's
I
his,
think that could take years.
Mr. Smith, would you prefer a check cut from the town to you?
yes, I would.
Okay, all right, so could
And
you
then,
add this in a motion that the reimbursement will be done by check from the town to Mr. Smith, please?
And that'd be $1,220.
$20. Okay, all right, all in favor? Okay, settled. It's not settled to your full satisfaction, but I think due diligence has been done.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's go through the recycling building proposal. There is a motion on the table that is to recommend that council approve the recycling building proposal in principle and direct administration to pursue the recycling building proposal with a handicap association. So it's in principle, please note, in principle. It is not a given. The proposal is an idea, but it's an idea worth looking at. And if administration come up from some better ideas, or if you have some better ideas to offer to the conversation, please direct your ideas and new proposal to administration for further review.
I vaguely recall last week when we were putting together this recommendation for council that something was said along the lines of that we were going to encourage administration to look at options that wouldn't, hopefully, wouldn't affect ratepayers.
Okay.
I just remember that coming up.
Yes.
The proposal kind of doesn't go that way, and
Right.
and we kind of want it to stay not going that way.
Okay, so
So-
this is, right now what we want to do is maybe approve the motion as is in principle, meaning that what you trying to address here is maybe a different model that would not be exactly the model with the purchasing of the building or of the land and putting a building, which is a different kind of thing. But administration needs some kind of direction to start looking at it. Without our approval, they can't look at anything. So, can we have that motion?
All right, we-
Okay.
you
Go
know-
ahead, Bill.
Okay, yes, all right. I'm-
Councillor Creed
We'll make a
will put
motion
that
that
motion.
we approve in principle the
The recycling building proposal.
the request by the Handicap Association to work with them in finding a location for a more suitable facility for them.
For
And
recycling
For recycling,
purposes.
yeah, for the recycling purposes, and that administration work with the Handicapped Association in
Okay.
trying to help them with that.
Can you help me? Let's try to go back to the original motion and let's try to see if we can work with that. It was to recommend that council approve the recycling building proposal in principle and direct administration to pursue the recycling building proposal with a handicap association. Would that work?
Mhm.
All right. So, any questions? All in favor? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
just have one question, just to Councillor Peavoy's comment. Are you talking about an impact on the capital project, or are you talking about increased fees for recycling? I just, operational costs
Great question, yeah,
or
neither.
capital costs?
Well, I
Okay.
mean, specifically what we're looking for is that the
Capital.
capital not be provided directly by ratepayers,
Okay.
Yeah.
right? So, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of.
Because as.
Yeah,
so
grant's
just as
great.
I-
Give us everything you
Fundraising,
want.
whatever it
I'll
takes
write
to
a letter.
raise money.
Well, one at a time.
No, I was going to say, we will, as these proposals develop, there might be some recommendations that come forward, because when you have enhanced recycling, potentially there could be enhanced cost as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that's going to look like, and obviously that would come to council before anything was ever implemented. But I just wanted clarification that we were talking about the capital
Right.
investment.
To the recycling bit, I would just say, and this is personal, but as long as it's not mandatory recycling programs, you have my 100% support.
Okay, I hear you, but the whole idea of recycling, we don't have Councillor Bengry there, but the whole idea of recycling is to divert what we as humans could do more responsibly, and in order not to fill our landfill that is coming at capacity every year, and for which you pay tremendous amount of money through your requisition. Maybe you're not quite aware,
I'm aware.
but every time the landfill here is
I'm one of those
shipping.
families that has more than 4 bags every week, so
Yeah.
I'm very aware
Yeah, but
why that is.
every time it's being shipped to Lethbridge, there are additional costs that come to all the municipalities involved. So if we can divert some of that waste away from the landfill through recycling, it kind of makes sense,
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
So that's all what I have to say there. Okay, vagrancy. Councillor Peavoy, you made a recommendation to council. Would you like to make the motion?
Sure, yes.
Okay, so can you
Just
read the
to,
motion?
thank you, to direct administration to investigate various ways to enforce the vagrancy bylaw, to resolve the vagrancy issue in a timely fashion. I think it's worded well.
All right.
I
And
think
so-
they've done that, so to their credit, well done.
Just under some discussion with their, we
Yeah.
received a lot of very positive feedback. I
Okay.
know that some of it hasn't come directly to the town.
Which is what I asked Mr. Cahoon to do,
Oh.
to kind of send all the comments to the town so that we can also know that the little bit of patrolling that has been done on the street out of your own free will and choice, thank you so much for your volunteering. It's much appreciated, had quite a positive impact on our merchants and on solving temporarily the problem that we were trying to address. As you realize, our new corporal is in contact with Marian. They're going to have a meeting along with Danny and with bylaw officer in order to address the further possibility of dealing with extra patrolling from our volunteers in town. So thank you so much. Does administration want to add something to it?
No, we've just had numerous conversations at this point. We want to make sure that those volunteers are safe as well, and so there's some things that we've discussed, myself and Danny have discussed.
Tasers?
And,
I'm kidding.
and of course, it's a concern for the RCMP as well, the safety of those volunteers in the community, so we'll have further discussions.
All right, any more discussion on the motion? Seeing none, let's do a vote. All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you. Well done. And thank you so much, Brett. All right, emergency communication proposal. I had moved that we approve the code red option, but scrutinize the policy associated with it and have administration approach the county to see if they can share this system and its cost. So that is a motion that somebody can make at the table.
I'll make that
Councillor
motion.
Barnes?
The wording you got here is perfect.
Okay, so let's take the wording of the motion back.
So moved by,
Any, moved by Councillor Barnes, that council approve the code red option, but scrutinize the policy associated with it and have administration approach the county to see if they can share this system at its cost.
So just a question on that motion, and I'm in my old age, my mind's getting fuzzy possibly, but
It's okay, in your old age?
yeah.
Then
So,
mine has to be
I was
correct.
there in that conversation, and I remember the motion, I'm pretty sure I voted for it, but I don't remember that we picked code red as the option.
Yes,
We did.
it's
We
what
did.
we
I thought
picked.
we were still looking at the
No.
two.
We had picked code red for the reason that it had a broader application and an easier way for tracking. So that was really the reason why we had looked at it. It was the breadth of application that was interesting to us. And-
technically, the other one was kind of two-bit, if
Yeah.
I recall.
Yeah, and the overall cost, if you had an emergency, was actually probably more beneficial.
Yeah.
Mayor Cronin, just a couple things on that motion. I have not had time to speak with the county to see if they would share in the cost. If we approach the county, you need to understand that the cost will increase. because it's based on our population. That's how that quote was defined. So sharing in the cost may
So there
not
may not be a
truly be
cost savings?
sharing in the cost.
Okay, I see what
It's
you're
going to be
saying.
a cost increase, right?
Okay, so,
There might be some economy of scale,
Right.
but just so that you don't think they're going to be able to share at 50% of the $3,800.
We don't want 50/50.
but would it be,
60/40 sounds great.
70/30.
from an application point of view, in case of an emergency, a lot of our county residents at the fringe would be impacted as much as we might be.
So there could be a portion that could be included, maybe not the entire county, I don't know, but we haven't
Right.
had, obviously, the time this meeting was last
Right.
Tuesday,
Okay.
and the agenda was put together
Okay,
Thursday.
so let's
But-
add something. What about if we add the word approved in principle?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's okay the way it's worded, it's just
Okay.
that.
Just
we
be
can-
aware of what that means.
Yeah, just be aware that it may mean that, you
Yeah,
know,
we're not
we'll
passing
come
a
back
motion.
with whatever cost sharing there is.
Right.
Okay,
But the second thing is, I've checked with municipalities who have used a similar system in the past. I haven't been able to find a policy yet, but all of them have said to me, when you get your policy approved, would you please send it to us, because we'd love to have one. So it may be difficult to get input on the policy, but I still have a couple of calls to make.
okay,
Okay?
thank you. Well, you have some work for yourself.
I just sit with my feet up till.
Thank you, absolutely, we know that. Okay, we need to pass the vote. All in favor? Thank you.
Do we have a break?
Do you need a break? Sure, absolutely. 5-minute recess?
You need a motion to recess.
Yeah, we need to.
I'll move that we recess.
Okay, Councillor Barfuss?
All those in favor, do anything?
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So
Run,
5-minute
Councillor.
recess.
I'll
Thank
vote
you.
no.
It's only 5, Councillor.
Don't harass me, please.